Do you ever find yourself scrolling mindlessly through social media when you should be working on something important? Or staring at a mountain of tasks but still feeling paralyzed? You're not alone. In fact, procrastination is a universal struggle that affects nearly everyone. But what if I told you that procrastination isn't just about laziness? What if it's a complex psychological mechanism holding you back from your greatest potential? Let's start with the big question. Why do we procrastinate? It seems illogical, right? We know the task is important, and yet we delay. It turns out, procrastination is not just a matter of poor time management. At its core, it's about managing our emotions. You see, when we face something difficult or stressful, our brain triggers a natural fight-or-flight response. But instead of confronting the task, we avoid it, because the stress of starting is just too overwhelming. When faced with a challenge, your brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone. This creates a sense of anxiety that makes us want to escape. And suddenly, scrolling through cat videos or organizing your desktop feels like the most important task of the day. Funny how that works, right? You're procrastinating by being productive at something completely irrelevant. So procrastination isn't about laziness. It's an emotional coping mechanism. But that doesn't make it any less frustrating. The real question is, how do we break free from this cycle? Hold on, before we dive deeper, quick question. Have you ever realized that the more we avoid a task, the bigger and scarier it becomes in our minds? Stick with me, I'll explain exactly why that happens. Here's where things get even more interesting. Procrastination often ties into something deeper. Fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even fear of success. You see, when we procrastinate, we're not just avoiding a task, we're avoiding the negative emotions that might come with it. This fear is so strong that it can create a feedback loop. We avoid the task, the anxiety builds up, and we feel more terrified to face it. But here's the thing. This avoidance might feel comforting in the moment, but it's a trap. Because each time we delay, we only intensify our feelings of guilt, shame, and stress. The longer you put something off, the harder it becomes to start. And here's the irony. The things we fear are often far less terrifying than our imagination tells us. In fact, most of the time, once we begin a task, we realize it wasn't as bad as we thought. Procrastination plays on our minds, creating a worst-case scenario that doesn't even exist. So how do we tackle this fear? It's simple. We start small and face it head-on. The moment we begin, the fear begins to dissipate. And once we've completed that task, the relief is like a weight lifted from your shoulders. Okay, now let's talk about how to finally break free from the grip of procrastination. The first step, break the task down into smaller chunks. The bigger the task, the greater the fear. When you divide it into smaller, more manageable parts, you trick your brain into thinking it's less daunting. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you're creating quick wins that motivate you to keep going. Next, set a timer. Just 10 or 15 minutes of focused work can make a world of difference. You don't have to commit to hours on end, just start. That initial momentum is key to overcoming the inertia of procrastination. And finally, here's a trick most people overlook. Self-compassion. Procrastination is often rooted in self-criticism. We beat ourselves up for putting things off, which only makes the problem worse. So when you find yourself procrastinating, don't shame yourself. Acknowledge the feeling and then refocus on what you can do right now to move forward. It's time to stop the cycle of fear, anxiety, and delay. The first step is simple. Start. But don't just start. Celebrate each small victory, no matter how insignificant it may seem. Each step forward gets you closer to overcoming procrastination for good. So now you know why we procrastinate, how to face the fear, and how to break the cycle. But here's a challenge for you. What if the next time you feel that urge to procrastinate, you use the strategies we've just talked about? The real question is, are you ready to take action and stop holding yourself back? Because once you do, your productivity, creativity, and overall happiness will skyrocket. Trust me, it's going to change everything. Until then, break free from procrastination and start living your best, most productive life. If you found this helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more brain-boosting tips, and leave a comment with your biggest procrastination challenge. Let's crush it together.